I think it really starts on taking that big picture and really getting crystal clear on who do you want to be? What do you want your life to look like? All those things. That's number one.
Welcome to the Wealth Strategy Secrets of the Ultra Wealthy podcast, where we help entrepreneurs like you exponentially build wealth through passive income to live a life of freedom and prosperity. Are you tired of paying too much in taxes, gambling your future on the stock market, and want to learn about hidden strategies for making your money work for you? And now your host, Dave Wolcott, serial entrepreneur and author of the best-selling book, The Holistic Wealth Strategy.
Hey everyone, welcome to today's show on Wealth Strategy Secrets. Today we're joined by a special guest, Rich Fettke. Rich has a passion for helping people improve their businesses, grow their wealth, and live more fulfilling lives. He is the author of The Wise Investor, Extreme Success, and the audio program Momentum. Rich is also a co-founder of Real Wealth. Since 2003, the company has helped over 60,000 members improve their financial intelligence and acquire cash-flowing income properties so they can live life on their own terms. As a licensed real estate broker and an active investor, Rich was selected as a Rich Dad author for his expertise as a wealth mindset expert. A pioneer in the field of business and personal coaching, Rich is past president of the Professional and Personal Coaches Association, and his work has been featured in numerous Tier 1 media outlets. He's also the former owner of a large health club franchise and has over 35 years experience in business startups, management, and training. And as an adventure athlete, Rich has competed in the ESPN X Games and is a record-holding bungee jumper, licensed skydiver, experienced rock climber, lifetime skier, addicted surfer, and wait for it, a really lame distance runner. He enjoys working and playing in Malibu, California with his wife, Kathy, and their 2 daughters. Rich, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Really good to be here. Looking forward to this.
Yeah, no, I've really been looking forward to this, Rich. Like I mentioned, we are definitely kindred spirits, I think, on our outlook in the world and wealth building and what that really means. So I think listeners are in for a real treat today. And just to, unpack your bio a little bit, you can easily see, right, the sense of adventure that you bring, not only in sports, but, how you approach life, right, in business and with real estate investing. So why don't you tell the audience who might not be familiar with you and your story? I know it's quite a fascinating journey that you have had, but if you can help the audience just learn a little bit more about your background.
Sure, absolutely. Yeah, adventure is definitely a big part of my life. It's really important, both in business and physically and all this. I think it's an adrenaline addiction, a positive one, I hope. But if I go way back, what started it all for me in getting into this adventure and focus and business and growth and all that was I was bullied in high school. This kid kept beating me up every day in junior year. And so that summer, I decided to put on some muscle. I started to lift weights and take martial arts. And that just really changed things for me. I was diagnosed learning disabled when I was 8 years old. I was diagnosed as hyperkinetic disorder, which today they call ADHD. But for that, it was like I had this self-belief or no self-belief really, because I kept getting these reports about lacks what it takes to succeed and all these things and put in these special classes. So the weightlifting and this kid bullying me and everything just completely transformed things for me. All of a sudden, I started to get bigger and stronger, but more than anything, I learned about self-discipline. And until then, I didn't have much self-discipline. I was pretty much all over the place. And that started me on this path of goal setting and growth and getting better and everything. So all that took me down this path of opening that health club that you mentioned when I was 23 years old. I sold that successfully after 7 years. Moved to California, met my incredible wife, Kathy. And then I started, I got certified as a business and personal coach. So I was coaching people on business and growth. And that's what my degree in college was, entrepreneurship and business. So I took all that and was coaching clients. And honestly, it was going great. I signed a book deal with Simon & Schuster. I was giving keynote speeches. I was on top of my game. And then I was diagnosed with melanoma, which is not too bad, really. It's a skin cancer. It's the most advanced form of skin cancer. But they thought it had spread to my liver because they did a CT scan and it showed 4 masses on my liver. And then the doctor said, this is not good. I want you to get an ultrasound and see what's going on. And that showed 4 masses. So I ended up meeting with an oncologist and I said, what does this mean? And he said, it looks like you got about 6 months to live. So I was 37 years old. Kathy and I had 2 daughters. We had a 10-year-old, a 3-year-old, and it just rocked our world. It rocked Kathy's world in a big way because she was a stay-at-home mom. I had to find a way, or she had to find a way to make ends meet if I died, and I had to find a way to heal this. Thankfully, the doctor's diagnosis was wrong. It was just hemangiomas, clusters of blood vessels that a lot of us have. It's harmless, but the connection of the melanoma and these scans and everything, it wasn't until I got a PET scan, which is the most advanced form of cancer scanning, that I was basically diagnosed cancer free. So we were celebrating, but in that whole process, Kathy it took 3 months before we knew if I was going to live or not. And after 3 months, and I got that PET scan, but in that 3-month period, Kathy's like, what am I going to do? And she decided to really seek out mentors to find out what she could do to make an income. And she found out that most of these people were successful through real estate. They made most of their wealth through real estate investing. So that's what turned us on to real estate. Once I had my surgeries to remove the melanoma and we had that good positive diagnosis, then we started to invest, and we did a cash out refi on our home up in the San Francisco Bay Area. And we went to a little town north of Dallas called Rockwall, Texas. We ended up buying 5 investment properties there. And so that is what kind of led us on this path of real estate investing, which has been a great path. That was over 20 years ago now. And we had friends and family saying, how are you doing this? How are you living in San Francisco and investing in Texas and all that? So we just decided to form a little group of friends and family and try to support people and show them how we did it and invest with them. And that little group that we called Real Wealth is now has 70,000 members today. Wow. So that's the company that we've developed now. It's called Real Wealth, as you mentioned. And it's been a blessing, really. So that curse of the diagnosis has really turned into a blessing in so many ways.
Wow, it's such a powerful story, Rich. And I talk about this actually in my book as well, is that, we hear really moving stories like that, right? That got you to the point where you had to just really rethink everything in your life, right? And be forced to prioritize. I mean, literally in a 6-month window, to prioritize everything that's really meaningful in your life, right? So, instead, I always encourage people to, not wait for that moment, right? Of the chronic illness, the loss of a loved one, to be able to make that massive shift in your life if you're not happy. Take
100%.
it now while you don't have the pressure. It takes a lot of courage, right? But just go for it now and don't wait for one of those events to happen.
It's a huge principle of my coaching. And, I was continued to coach clients. I don't coach as many clients now. I only work with 3 clients at a time, but it's a huge focus of my coaching is as the Stoics called it, memento mori, knowing that you are going to die. Remember that you are going to die. And that could be in 6 months. It could be tomorrow, or it could be in 50 years, but it doesn't matter. It's like, how can you live fully and be your best self today and live your best life? It's huge. It's my driving force.
Yeah, that's awesome, Rich. So tell us a little bit about, your philosophy on wealth. And I find this topic so fascinating, really. It's really kind of the psychology of money and wealth. And I think oftentimes, whether it's the media or, culture, right, we get caught up in, making more money, doing more things, right? But we lose sight of what does it really mean? And, I love in your book how you talk about real wealth and what that really means. And clearly you've got some amazing experiences to shape that. So help us understand, your definition of real wealth.
I mean, it really came from that diagnosis and going through 3 months of not knowing if I was going to be alive and looking at my daughters thinking, wow, am I never going to see them get married or meet my grandchildren and all that stuff. So that is what has driven Kathy and me. And that's why we called our company Real Wealth, because it's not just about money. It's about having the money and the freedom to live life on your own terms. It's being able to be with your family and also one thing we noticed and why it's such a big purpose for us is when people don't have those money stresses, they're better humans. They're better parents. They just show up better. They're better spouses because they're not stressed out. They feel more abundance in their lives. So money is huge. It's a huge part of it, but it's like, what do you do with that money and how can you have that money create more freedom of time? And so you can really live and show up the way you want to live. So it's huge. It's been with us since the beginning. When we formed this company 20 years ago, that's what we set out to do. It was our purpose, is help people create real wealth. And now we even measure it. We track it because it's our mission. We want to help 1,000 people declare that they have fully experienced real wealth. So we created this real wealth assessment that is like 20 questions that people can fill out to see where they are. Most people in the beginning, they score like a 50 or 60, but over time with putting things in the right place and investing and getting the right team in place and all these things, all of a sudden their score starts to go up and up over time. And then that really, that fires us up. Our whole team gets all fired up when we see someone pass an 80 as a score. Is kind of our litmus test. When someone passes 80 on that real wealth score, we're like, okay, we're doing our work. It's happening. It's working. Yeah, it's huge.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, because it's really about a process, right? It's not necessarily the outcome. And I also find it really interesting is that when you can get crystal clear on what your vision is and where you're going, some things that drive fulfillment and freedom in your life actually don't even require money, right? It might be just taking a different approach, different mindset, maybe having the time to do something. Right. So there's so much more to it than just, we also think about is, the numbers in our bank account or, our balance sheet. Right.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's the biggest challenge that I've seen. The biggest problem is lack of clarity. When I work with a new client or even when we interview the members at Real Wealth, it's a lack of clarity about where do they really want to go? Where do they want to be in 10 years, in 20 years? Where do they want to be by the end of their life? When I work with my clients, a lot of times I have them write their own eulogy, like basically to look at what would you want people to say about you at your funeral? And it's such a powerful exercise. It brings up tears and butterflies and all this stuff. But so often we don't stop. Most people don't stop to really look deeply at where do they want to be, they think about maybe the year goals or they have an idea of where they want to be in 10 years. But I think it really starts on taking that big picture and really getting crystal clear on who do you want to be? What do you want your life to look like? All those things. That's number one.
Why do you think that is, Rich? What's really holding people back?
I think it's busyness. Honestly, I think we get so busy and we have our kids and our jobs and so many things coming at us that it creates an overwhelm. It's like, I think we all have a little bit of ADD, right? Because of today's society and so much coming at us that we often don't feel we have the time to stop and really ask ourselves those questions. That's why I wove that into the book of The Wise Investor, where the mentor takes Ryan, the protagonist, through this process of meeting his future self, meeting himself in the future. And I've done that with clients for the last 25 years. And it's always just, man, I love that exercise, meeting myself in the future and looking at, asking him some questions and seeing how he lives. And so it's having some tools and a process to clarify that vision of where you really want to go, who you want to be. That's it.
Yeah, so we focus a lot on actually creating what we call the holistic wealth strategy, right? Which is building a process and a plan for how you're going to build wealth. Do you have a particular wealth strategy or an approach that you and Kathy are following, or that you work with your clients on?
Absolutely. I mean, what we decided and we got clear on is we are experts in single family, like 1 to 4 units. We syndicate as well as, as a company, and we do residential developments. Honestly, we usually build single family homes and all that. There's a lot of great other ways to invest in real estate, but we picked our lane and we just focused on becoming experts in it. So our whole model and what we help our members do is investing in single family 1 to 4, putting together a portfolio of cash flowing properties that's going to benefit them with all the tax benefits, all that, and the depreciation and the growth of that and the wealth building and everything. So it's worked really well for us with Kathy and me. And honestly, it's really worked really well for our members who just kind of follow the process. So it's like, I think in real estate, there's so many ways to invest and there's so many ways to create wealth and cash flow and all. I think the most important thing you do is really pick your lane, choose what is it that you're most interested in, and like look at all of it and then come back and say, okay, what am I going to really focus on? And that's what we did. And that's what we help our members do.
Yeah, for sure. Are there any other components to that around mindset and, with your coaching background and everything, any other components outside of just, the physical investing perspective?
I mean, the discipline piece,
Yeah.
Before we started the show today, you and I were talking about discipline and the importance of it and how powerful that is. So it's really it's the clarity of where do you really want to go? And so many people come, and even like, there's so many people who look at it like, just give me the tools. What do I need to do? Where should I invest and what should I invest in? But they don't step back and take the bigger picture. They don't look at the bigger picture. So I'm really passionate about that. Is like, wait a minute, stop. Let's come back. And Kathy's also a certified coach. She got certified way back in 1996 when I did. So that's what we've woven into the fabric of our company, is drawing out from our clients and our members, what is it that you really want? And how can you set up a strategic plan with the goals and milestones so you know that you're on track? So I think that's a huge part of it. And really looking at first laying out the plan, but then looking at how do you stick to the plan? And I think that's where most people drop the ball. They come up with this great plan, no matter who helps them create it, but then it's following through on it. That's, I think, the sticking point.
Yeah. Yeah, I really believe that having a strategy is just absolutely paramount, and if you look at, the ultra wealthy and family offices and how they're allocating capital, I mean, they have a very distinctive strategy. They're allocating capital on a 25-year horizon. They're not making short-term decisions. And I think it really helps to balance some of the things like, the emotions that come into investing, right? That can kind of take you out of your lane, right? When there's certain highs or certain lows, like, right now there's so much going on in the marketplace, it might cause you to, make kind of a short-sighted decision, based on fear or something that's happening. But if you have a strategy in place, then you can really, it gives you something to, kind of rally to. Right?
I love that. That's exactly it. And it's having those things in place too, as far as something to take the emotion out of it, right? And just having that strategy helps take the emotion out of it when things get emotional, but you say, wait a minute, what's my plan? Having your personal financial statement in place so you know exactly where your net worth is, what your monthly cash flow is. Having a very clear spending plan or budget in place that you're checking in on a regular basis, at least once a month. Having a bookkeeper that's, keeping up to date and all that. So that's what Kathy and I have, is a bookkeeper who's constantly each month sends us reports on all these things. We've kind of got it dialed in, and it's a whole report on our properties and our portfolio and how each property is doing. It's a report on the net worth and everything all the way down there. Some key KPIs, if you will, those key performance indicators on how we're doing as investors.
Yeah. Excellent. And where do you think the market is today with respect to single family, right? I mean, there's, again, so much going on, right? I mean, 6 month, one of the most historic rises in interest rates that we've had. We've had some of the banking failures recently. And I know, real estate is very specific too, right?
It is.
I'm sure it's different in California and Florida. So what are you really seeing and advising investors for 2023 right now?
I mean, right now we're really grateful that we're in single family. Really grateful. We have a lot of friends who are in multifamily, and they're challenged with the short-term loans and the floating debt and all this stuff. It's like it's definitely creating some huge challenges there, and I feel for them, and I'm worried for some of them. Some of them got really smart and locked in some rates for the long till. I have some friends who locked in debt until 2029, which I think was a really smart move. But with single family, it's not getting hit. There's still a lack of inventory of single family properties. It's still growing in some markets. Some markets absolutely going down, and especially here in California, we've seen some pretty solid drops. But where we invest is mostly in the South and the Southwest. Southeast, I'm sorry. And like Florida, we have a single family fund that is all investing in north of Dallas, where the chip manufacturing is happening. Tons of businesses moving there, tons of people moving there. The price of property is still increasing. Rents are increasing. So, I think right now single family's strong and looks really good going into the future if you're in the right market.
Yeah, interesting. And have you been participating at all in the latest trend around build to rent?
Yeah, absolutely. Not like a full build to rent community. We kind of steer away from that just because what we've seen in the past with build to rent communities is sometimes because it's not owner based, when there's not enough owners there, people don't often take as good care of the properties. So if a build to rent community can really work, if you have one management company that's managing the whole community, then everything's good, and they keep up with the upkeep, and they make sure that people aren't parking cars on the lawns and all that type of stuff. Sure. But we've done a lot of build to rent properties that our investors have purchased. So basically the way we work is we have brokers that we have relationships with around the country in these emerging markets. And then basically they have a lot of, build to rent, or their rehab single family properties. But there was a huge shift because all those foreclosures pretty much got all gobbled up by all the flippers and all the turnkey property providers, that we shifted to a lot of kind of that build to rent, not a community, but a build to rent model. And it's been awesome, because they're new properties. They come with builder warranties, and you don't have to worry about them. Sometimes these turnkey properties that were built back in the 50s or the 40s, they can kind of come with their challenges, even if it's been fully rehabbed down the road. So Kathy and I, as investors personally, we really focus on new builds now for our portfolio.
Okay. Yeah, that was my next question is, tell us a little bit about the business model at Real Wealth, right? How if you guys aren't doing turnkey, how does it really work?
Yeah, 20 years ago, we were referring to agents and brokers just who had new builds. It's funny how things change, that everything comes around, but it was a little different back then. People could put no money down, and they were doing these NINA loans, no income, no assets, and people could just get any type of loan back in 2003, 2000, up to 2008, or up to 2007, really. So we were helping a lot of people get into investment properties that way. And then when the whole foreclosure crisis hit, then we started to team up with brokers and property teams that would find these foreclosures, fix them up, make them like new again, and then put a renter in place. And as far as the way the business model works, the way we monetize it is, as a broker, I can refer investors and clients to another broker in a different state and still get a broker to broker referral fee, just like any broker would get. Usually it's around 3%, typical real estate commission. Yeah. So that's our biggest thing at Real Wealth, is it's really vetting and finding the right brokers and the right properties. So out of 100 brokers and property teams that apply to be a Real Wealth Network investor or provider, I would say it's probably about, honestly, it's pretty low. It's probably 5% of those that we accept, because once they apply to be a provider, then we do a whole background check on them. If they pass that, then we look at their market and really look at, is this a thriving market? What is it, emerging? Is it growing? Are people moving there? And if that pass that test, then our property team managers will fly out and inspect the properties, meet them, talk to some of their investors, do a whole background check. And then even before we release those properties to our members for investing, we release it to just a small group of experienced investors. So they test it out for usually 3 or 4 months. And then if they come back in this, they're like, yep, this is good. My property's doing well. The property management's good. Work out the kinks. Then that's when we accept them as a property team. That's kind of that's the model.
Yeah. And would an investor own, are they buying the entire property in their name and everything? They own the entire place, right?
Yeah. So in our syndications, obviously not. They're buying a unit or several units in the syndication. Yeah. But with this, most people, it's people who want to put together a portfolio of their own properties. And, usually it's like, most people will get into it that way. They'll put together a portfolio of 10 to 20 properties that are cash flowing and they're growing. And some of those are, do really well. Like some of those properties in Tampa, Florida and Jacksonville, Florida, they went up 43% over the year. It was just incredible. So a lot of wealth accumulation there.
Wow. And then how about, from the management standpoint? Because I know that's typically one of the biggest objections with people. If you've got a W-2 job, you want to invest in real estate, right? So they might go to syndications because it's passive. But what is actually involved if they have that property? Does your team provide any resources for the property management?
Yeah, all of the properties that we refer to always have property management in place that we have vetted and really looked at and gotten the feedback on, and we're kind of become like the Yelp for real estate investors in a way for single family properties. Because if one of our members comes back and says, hey, the property management team is not following through on this, or I'm not happy with this, then we log that. It's called our resolution process. We log that complaint and we talk to the property management company and say, hey, we had this complaint. Will you guys clean it up? If we get several complaints about that property management company, then basically we'll just say, we're going to have to take you off our referral list because you're just not working out. You're not meeting our qualifications. And that usually does the trick, where they're like, no, we want to keep getting, these clients and these sales and all that stuff. So they'll clean up their act. But we've had to let some go over the years. They can't get their act together, or they've grown too fast. But I've tried to manage properties, our own properties myself, and I realize, it can be a major pain in the butt to manage your own properties and, deal with the sob stories and why people are late on their rent and all that stuff. So no, I don't do that anymore.
Yeah. And then what do you recommend in terms of, guidance around debt in today's market, right? Is there a certain LTV structure you're looking at? And also, how about, do you put it in an entity or what? How are you advising people?
Definitely putting the properties in a protected LLC just to protect them in the states that they're in. I think that's really important. A lot of people miss that one. They'll just get an entity in Nevada or Wyoming and put their properties into that, not realizing that they're not fully protected. So an LLC in the state. So I think it's good to kind of batch your properties if you're going to buy several single families. I think all in like a bunch in one state, maybe a bunch in another state. So you have some diversification, like Florida gets hit with a hurricane or something like that. I think it's good to diversify, but I think it's, we look for landlord friendly states. So I think that's really important. And then as far as the debt, it's just running the numbers and just making sure that you at least get some cash flow. It used to be a lot more cash flow when we had those crazy low rates, but really today it's looking at this property at least has to cash flow a little, because we're for the long haul. We're boring. I guess you could say our investing model and strategy is boring. It's long. It's always looking at things over like a 10-year window and having it slowly build wealth over time. And then when you look back on it, it's one of the greatest ways to grow wealth. That's what I've seen over the last 20 years when you do it right. So I think it's finding the right debt. Today, there's a lot of incentives where people can get their rate bought down by the seller. We have some of these builder loans now that they're doing for the new builds, like you mentioned, 4.75 for a 10-year arm is pretty darn good. Wow. That's because it's the builder puts money up front and buys this special rate. So there are ways to do it. nowadays. You don't have to go in with one of the, 7% loans that I just don't know how you can get those to cash flow.
Yeah. Yeah. And how about from a tax strategy perspective? Are you just looking at depreciation on these properties, or is there any other intricacies to this?
Mostly just the typical, 27.5 year depreciation, which ends up, a lot of, for Kathy and me, and for a lot of investors, it really gets your income, your taxes down to zero with the right way, especially if you can set yourself up as a real estate professional, or if you have a spouse that can be the real estate professional in the relationship, then you can really get a lot of those tax benefits. So that's a big way. And then, I think a great model, one thing that Kathy and I put in place is we have several short-term rentals. So we get that accelerated depreciation on all the furnishings, and we get so many write-offs, and we try to buy these rentals where they're places where we want to go, like Park City, Utah. Kathy and I have one there. So it's pretty good. We go up and check on that rental property and maybe tack on a couple of days of skiing up there too.
Yeah. Awesome. You gotta love
a lot
it.
of tax benefits.
Yeah. Now that's thinking smart. So Rich, from a personal development perspective, what's the one practice for you that has yielded the biggest results?
Personal development.
I know this is going to be hard for you because you've got a lot.
I know my brain's going all over the place.
Exactly. That's why I said just one. You only get one.
Yeah, I'm trying to think, like, what if I were to remove that one thing? What would be the game changer as far as, like, in a negative way? Mm-hmm. I honestly, I would say it's training. I would say it's working out. It's so huge how, for me, the physical so much affects the mental. So consistent working out, because of the self-discipline it takes to make it happen when you don't feel like doing it and you do it anyway. And, there's science and based research that shows that we can actually improve and develop our willpower over time. When you do something that you don't want to do, your neurons fire to another neuron in that area of the brain that's about willpower and self-discipline. And that connection gets stronger and stronger. So the more you do something consistently that you don't feel like doing, that takes discipline, you actually become a more disciplined person over time. And I've seen that in my own life. I've seen that with my clients. It's incredibly powerful. I've seen it with my daughter. She loves to talk about, her workouts, and she even does the cold plunges and all that stuff. And she's got incredible self-discipline. And I think it comes from that.
No, it's so powerful. I mean, I couldn't relate to that one even more. And it's amazing though, because there's this cultural tug as well, right? I can remember so many times in my career that, I was always training and working out. I was always competing for something or whatever. Mm-hmm. And the whole time I was doing it, I was always felt like I was under pressure. Like, I got to hurry up and finish this run because I've got, I got to get to work. I got to get to the office. Right. And because there's, all of these really important things, that are going on. And I finally was able to kind of let go of that, maybe 8 years ago, and actually realize that, when I'm exercising, it's actually thinking time too, right? It's actually some of the most valuable time of your day. We're going back full circle to what we were talking about in the beginning of the discussion around, creating your vision, getting clear on your goals, reprioritizing, what's important, and just really, setting you up for success in the day to live your day intentionally. So I really cherish my exercise time, not only from that, physical aspect and all the benefits you're getting there, but just also the mental aspect and really, connecting with your mind and what's important.
Yeah. It's a moving meditation. It's absolutely. Yeah. It's huge. And, it's one thing I finally committed to. It took me forever, but it finally committed to morning meditation. I started using that Calm app. And I would get on a streak. I'd go for maybe like 15 days or 20 days or, 57 days was my longest. And I finally said, okay, I'm going to really commit to this. I want to see these benefits that everyone talks about, because my brain would go a mile a minute and always be like, what's next? And looking to the future, like you were saying. And I finally made this commitment. Today was day 614 in a row, just using that Calm app, 10 minutes in the morning. Mm-hmm. And that's been huge for me. It's incredible. Just like you're saying, I used to be so much about what's next and what do I got to do next and what's the future look like. And it's really helped me be way more present with myself, but more important with Kathy, with my daughters, with people in my life. Yeah. So I would say that's my number 2 personal development one now.
It's interesting you said that, because I, as much as I like exercise too, I mean, it's kind of a toss up for me as well. And I think about some of those people that, sadly have, lost the use of their limbs, or, veterans, right, coming back from the war.
Absolutely.
And, what if you didn't have the ability to work out? Right. The way that you couldn't go surfing or rock climbing or cycling or whatever it might be, you really just have your brain. And so, the meditation is just so absolutely powerful. It really just helps, if people out there have not done it, we talk about this in our family. I've encouraged my kids. You can't believe how much money I've given them to get into the habit of it, because I'm like, whatever it's going to take. This is literally one of the top 3 skills that you have to have in life, to put out the noise, get clear on what's important, and just, own your day. It's really critical.
So many benefits. And I'm reading that massive book, Outlive, Peter Attia's book right now.
Yes, his latest.
It's a great book. And man, it just, what keeps coming around over and over, if you want to increase your health span and be healthier and live a better, longer life, exercise is number 1. It's like, it's the no-brainer.
Yeah. He talks about it as if he says, if there was one magic pill or drug that's out there that could cure, all of the top killers. I mean, you name it, it's exercise.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. No doubt about it. Yeah. Yeah. And it doesn't have to be crazy. It just has to be something and some movement. And so I'm inspired. We always need those reinforcements, right? It's like you get up and you're like, do I want to work out this morning? It's like, yes, I do. Because it's like, reading this book, it's so inspiring for me to be like, okay, this is also for my health. This is also for my long term. And you get everything, the dopamine benefit, that natural high. Yeah.
Yeah. And I think, back to your coaching background, right? I mean, this is a great, point for listeners out there. If you are struggling with, getting an exercise regime, going that makes sense for you, right? Get yourself a coach. Right. We should actually have coaches in all areas of our business, in our lives, right? Not just business or health, right? But also just think about it from an exercise standpoint, because I have a cycling coach, and,
Nice.
I'm telling you, I didn't necessarily want to do the high intensity intervals that he assigns me every day. I get my heart rate up to 190 at 6 a.m.
My goodness.
Is interesting.
Wow.
But, there's that accountability factor, and you have to do it, and perform. And so, I think having a coach is really key.
It's a great point. I agree 100%.
Yeah. So Rich, last one here. If you just had one piece of advice you could give to listeners about how they could accelerate their wealth trajectory, what would it be?
Their wealth. See, my brain goes from money to what real wealth is to me. So
real wealth for you. Yeah.
Honestly, I'm just going to come back to, it sounds repetitive, but it's work on your self-discipline. And the more you can do that, everything from, I kind of obsessed with this topic. I've read so much on it and studied so much on it. Everything from making your bed to just doing what's best for you in the moment, and challenging yourself, getting uncomfortable. Great book called The Comfort Crisis. Talks about the need for us to get uncomfortable and how important and healthy that is. So to accelerate your wealth strategy and all that, and your wealth consciousness, it really comes back to self-discipline, because it's doing what's best for you and making the right choice in the moment. You can have all the tools and all the things that you could do or should do. If you're not doing it, it's not going to happen. So I'm going to go with that one.
Awesome. Love it, Rich. I really can't thank you enough for your time today. Sharing your insights with the audience, I think, is really just invaluable. If people want to, learn more about, what you're doing at Real Wealth or connect, what's the best place?
It's pretty simple. Realwealth.com is our website. And then if people want to be inspired and around creating real wealth, then my book, The Wise Investor, it's a parable. It's a modern parable, as you know. It's a story, but it carries in a lot of those key lessons on how to grow wealth, how to grow real wealth. And I really just wrote it to inspire people to shift their mindset and get excited about it and have some strategies that they can apply. So it's everywhere books are sold is The Wise Investor too.
Love it. And we'll definitely put links in the show notes. Rich, thanks again.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me.